Lifepoint Church, how we doing this beautiful Father's Day morning? Man, alive and well. Everybody glad to be here? Some of you, 5 of you? Awesome. My name's Brad. I have the privilege of being the student pastor here at Lifepoint. And man, it's such an honor to be with you guys and be able to share God's word with you this morning. Filling in for our lead pastor. Pastor Jeff's on sabbatical for a few weeks and taking some time to rest and relax and get geared up for all that God's got ahead of us in the next season of ministry. But before we really jump in today, I think it would be proper again to just give honor to where honor is due. And church, can we put our hands together and give it up for all the godly fathers in the room, all the dads, all the baby daddies. I want to thank my wife who's here with me on the front row for making me a baby daddy. Takes 2 to make that happen. And so turn to your neighbor real quick. Turn to your neighbor, first choice, and say, what had happened was. Some of you did that right. Some of you, it was way too proper and way too like pinkies up to like what had happened was. Grammar goes out the window. It's got to be one word altogether what had happened was. And so you need to turn to your second choice, your other neighbor, and say, what had happened was. What had happened was. We are kicking off a brand new series today, What Had Happened Was. Have you ever been in a moment that you were trying to explain something and you were like, well, you see, what had happened was, dads, if you've ever been left alone with your child for more than 5 minutes and mom comes back, what is he covered in and why is he naked? What had happened was, or you ever been caught red-handed doing something, like busted? And so, of course, as a Christian, your first thing that comes to your mind is lie about it, make up something. And you're like, it's not what it looks like. What had happened was, and then you proceed to just make up something, on the spot, on the fly. What had happened was, did you know that the Bible is full of what had happened was stories? Stories that are just a little bit crazy, stories that just don't make a lot of sense. And so we're going to dive into some of those. And this morning I want to share a verse with you, a chapter actually, 1 Samuel chapter 24. Go ahead and turn there. I'll give you some seconds. Use the table of contents. It's your friend. You don't want to be in the wrong book faking it. Have you ever been there? I know I'm not the only one. Pastor Jeff's in Joshua, and I'm like in John. Just like, please, nobody look at my Bible. We're going. And so table of contents, don't hate on that game. 1 Samuel 24, I want to give some context and set up the text before we jump into it. In 1 Samuel chapter 24, we've got two main characters, two main people in this story. Number one, David. David's a guy that many of you have heard a lot about. Maybe you grew up in church and you heard about David and Goliath. David was a shepherd boy in a family from nowhere. And David was the runt of all of his brothers. And one day, long time before 1 Samuel 24, a man of God, a prophet of God, came to David's house and was going to anoint one of those brothers to be the next king in line for the throne. And David didn't even get an invite to the party because his own dad didn't believe in him. And the prophet goes, do you have anybody else? None of your boys here are going to be the next king. And his dad goes, well, there's David, but he's out watching the sheep. And sure enough, he calls for David, and God tells him that is the next king. And so the man of God anoints David to be the next in line. David goes on back to the fields to be a shepherd for a little while. He goes on to kill a giant named Goliath and win a war for his nation. Does some incredible things. He actually finds himself, he's a warrior, he's a shepherd, but he also plays the harp. If you play the harp as a dude, you better kill giants as well. Because if you know what I'm saying. And so he killed giants, but he also played a mean harp. Like, I don't know if you can play a mean harp, but he did. And so when King Saul would get upset, stressed out, David would come and play for Saul. And so once David worked for Saul. However, there came a time where David's power, his influence, his popularity began to rise. And Saul knew that David had been anointed to be the next king. And Saul became very jealous. Saul became jealous that people were starting to chant David's name louder than his. And so Saul starts to not enjoy David's presence anymore. He starts throwing spears and starts actually hunting David. And so David goes on the run. And here we pick up in 1 Samuel chapter 24. David is on the run. Saul is hunting after him. And here we pick up in verse 1. It said this, after Saul returned from pursuing the Philistines, he was told, David is in the desert of En-Gedi. So Saul took 3,000 able young men from all Israel and set out to look for David and his men near the crags of the wild goats. Pause. That's a cool place to be from. Crags of the, where are you from, man? Crags of the wild goats. Like, I'm from Clayton. It just doesn't have the same ring to it. He came to the sheep pens along the way. A cave was there, and Saul went in to relieve himself. So Saul is that guy that everybody hates on a road trip. 15 minutes from the house. Hey guys, can we pull over? There's a guest. I got to go to the bathroom already. And so, of course, Saul being the king, nobody can complain. Yeah, we'll go. Did you not try to use the bathroom, Saul, before we left the kingdom? Like, come on, man. And so Saul finds a cave, goes in to relieve himself, and it says this, David and his men were far back in the cave. And so here we have the first biblical peeping Toms, just hanging out, watching Saul do his business. The men said, this is the day the Lord spoke of when he said to you, I will give your enemy into your hands for you to deal with as you wish. Then David crept up unnoticed and cut off a corner of Saul's robe. After David was conscience-stricken for having cut off a corner of his robe, and he said to his men, the Lord forbid that I should do such a thing to my master, the Lord's anointed, or lay my hand on him, for he is the anointed of the Lord. With these words, David sharply rebuked his men and did not allow them to attack Saul, and Saul left the cave and went his way. Then David went out of the cave and called out to Saul, my Lord, the king. Can you imagine that moment? David has just cut off the corner of his robe, and he comes out to call to Saul, the very guy that's hunting him down, and he goes, Saul, my Lord, my king. And Saul turns around, and he's got to be like, what had happened was you were going number, and we were in the cave, me and my boys. Here's your robe. Sorry I cut it. You know, like, what do you say to the dude that you just cut his clothing while he was relieving himself, you know? That's the moment we're in. The Bible's very interesting. You just got to read it right. You're like, this book's boring. You haven't read it right. When Saul looked behind him, David bowed down and prostrated himself with his face to the ground. He said to Saul, why do you listen when men say David is bent on harming you? This day you have seen with your very own eyes how the Lord delivered you into my hands in the cave. Some urged me to kill you, but I spared you. I said, I will not lay my hand on my Lord because he is the Lord's anointed. I want to preach to you today a message entitled, Watch the Throne. Watch the Throne. Nobody gets that reference. That's okay. Bunch of Christians. Watch the throne. Would you pray with me one more time? Jesus, I just thank you so much for this morning. God, I thank you for all the fathers in the room. And God, I thank you that you are our Heavenly Father. That, God, you show us how to be good dads ourselves. And Jesus, I thank you for this moment, God, the fact that you've gathered your people to lift up your name. And God, I know that if you've brought us all together, you've brought us here for a reason. You have something that you want to say to us. And so, God, I pray that our ears are open, that our hearts are open. God, that you would be free to move in this place and speak to us however you want. And Jesus, while we're praying, we just lift up LeBron James and the Miami Heat because they need you desperately. In Jesus' name, everybody said, amen. You got to get it in when you can, you know? Stop judging me. You know, there's some things I hate in the world. Can I be honest? I know as a pastor that might surprise you. As somebody that's trying to live a life that just pleases God. I know God is love, and we should be love and represent his love, and we should just be filled with love. But there's some things I really hate. Number one, the Spurs. Now, I know they're all like, oh, they're so fundamentally sound. I don't want to watch fundamental basketball. I want to watch dunks. I want to watch alley-oops. I want to watch fun basketball. Give me LeBron driving in the paint all day. Come on, I hate the Spurs. I reject what you just said. I heard that in the name of Jesus. Cast that spirit out of here. But I hate a couple more things. I got to be honest. There's one thing I just can't stand in this world. There's one thing that just gets under my skin. I hate to do it. I have to do it on a daily basis, and I just can't stand it. I despise it. I loathe it. I hate driving. Some of you are like, yes. 2 of you are yes, and then the rest of you are like, man, I got real issues. Like, let me sit down with you and tell you. But I hate driving. It's not just because I live in Wilmington and have to drive up and down College Road every day. My issue goes back a long time before that. I hate the process that I have to go through to get anywhere. I hated driving to church this morning. Like, I live 2 miles from here. I would have much rather taken a helicopter. I don't have time to waste in my life trying to get between point A and point B. Why have we not invented teleportation? It is 2014. Why are we still driving places? Like, I just want to get to where I'm going as quick and effectively and efficiently as possible. I'm not trying to waste time in process. I don't like driving to work. I don't like driving to Raleigh. I hate road trips. Some of you are like, oh, I just love road trips. Like the journey, looking at the trees and hearing the birds. Everything, like brewing coffee takes 2 hours because I just love the journey. I don't know what this is, but I just love taking life slow. That seems like hell to me. I'm just, even walking. I noticed this the other day. Mike Bell, y'all know our dream team coordinator. He's a cool dude. Like he's cool. I'm trying to be like him. And we were at the mall the other day because we shop together. Because friends that shop together stay together. I just made that up on the spot. That's so good. That's extra. Write that down. And I was talking to him, and we're walking, and I noticed that I was walking really fast, and then Mike's just like. And so I'd walk really fast ahead of them, and we're talking, and I'd be like, slow down. I have to like back up and then speed up again, and our cameraman hates us right now. And I was like, man, I walk so fast. I don't have time to spend just getting to where I'm going. I just want to be there. I want to click my heels together, snap my fingers, and be wherever I'm going. And one thing I've realized is this issue just doesn't involve traveling for me. In my journey of life, I don't like the meantime. I don't like the time spent between point A and point B. I just want to get to the next season. I want to accomplish the things that God's called me to. I want to experience the blessings that God has for me. I don't want to wait for them. I don't want to be patient. I can't stand the process of the journey in the meantime. And here in 1 Samuel chapter 24, we see David kind of mid-journey. You know, David's not where he used to be. He's not at point A anymore. He used to be a shepherd. He's not corralling the sheep anymore. He's not fighting giants anymore. He's not playing a harp anymore. But he's also not to where he's supposed to be yet. He's not king yet. He's been anointed king, but he's not there yet. He hasn't arrived. He's in the meantime. He's in the middle of his journey, and he's in a cave, hiding, trying to run for his life. I don't know about you, but I can relate to that. I can relate in my life to, I'm not where I used to be, but I'm also not where I want to be yet. That I look back on my life and where I've come from, and God's done incredible things in my life. Where he's brought me over the last 11 years since I've given my life to him is incredible. I'm not the person I used to be. I don't say the things I used to say. I don't do the things I used to do. God has given me incredible things and brought me an incredible distance. But then I look forward, and it seems like I'm so far away from all the things that God has for me that I'm not there yet. There's goals I haven't achieved. There's things that God's shown me that I've yet to experience firsthand. You know, I get so focused in my life, I get so focused on the future that oftentimes I neglect the present. I don't know if you're like me, and I don't want to just push my inadequacies on you and my shortcomings, but if you're anything like me, I struggle with being present. I struggle with the now because I get so focused on what God's going to do that I don't even sometimes acknowledge what God's already doing. That I get so focused on all that God has for me that I forget to thank Him for all the things that He's done for me. I get so focused on watching the throne that I oftentimes bypass the importance and the significance of these little everyday things called caves. And I want to suggest to you a thought this morning that the cave for us as followers of Jesus actually matters way more than the throne. That the cave matters more than the throne. That where you're at, who you're becoming, actually matters more than where you're going. You know, this played out firsthand for me last night. So focused on where I'm going that I totally missed what God had in front of me. I'm driving to church last night at 4 o'clock. And I'm driving, I'm praying through this message, I'm rehearsing it in my mind. I'm just, running things through and changing some things. And all of a sudden on St. Andrew's Drive, this is going to be awkward if she's here. This is my public apology if you are. You weren't here last night because your car broke. And so I see the lady in front of me, St. Andrew's, and all of a sudden her car just does something funky. And all of a sudden stops and she turns on her blinkers. And immediately what came to my mind was, man, I wish I had time to help. I wish I had time to pull over. I wish I had time, but I've got places to go. I've got things to do. I've got rehearsal to make. I've got to get to church so that I can preach your word, God. And so ashamedly, I admit, I just swerved around her and kept on going. And Jesus didn't let me get very far. He's like, Brad, isn't this exactly what you're preaching on? The fact that you're so busy going to do what I've called you to do that you're neglecting the things that I've put in front of you to do. And immediately I was just like, I suck. Wow. Here I'm going to preach to over 1,000 people. The cave is important. I don't have time for the cave. Got to get to church, do God's work. So I immediately just repented. I was like, God, I suck. I'm sorry. Turn around, do a U-turn. I'm just praying that God would forgive me. And as I'm praying for forgiveness, I just get this sense that God's going, you're going to have to share this story this weekend. And I was like, God, I don't want to share that story this weekend. I would much rather people think I have it all together. Some of you are like, we never thought that, Brad. So just helping you out, giving you more evidence for your case. And so I drove back and I got to her car and somebody else was already helping her. Somebody else had been Jesus. I had missed my opportunity. But once again, I get so focused on where I'm going. And where you're going many times can be good things. God has good plans for every single one of us. There's things that God wants to do in your life that are incredible. The visions, the dreams, the things that you want to achieve and succeed at, the prayers that you're praying, begging God for your future. Those are all good things. But if they ever become the thing that your eyes are fixated on, we've missed it. We've missed it because here's the thing, the cave matters way more than the throne. And if all we do is watch the throne, we won't even pay attention to the caves around us. Because the cave is what sets you up for the throne. A lot of us, just like myself, want to get to point B. We want to get to where we're going, but I'd rather not go through the cave. I would just rather just kind of arrive. But you see, the cave is necessary because the cave is what prepares you for the throne. The cave is God preparing you for all that He has prepared for you. That you don't get the throne without the cave. You want what God has for you, you're going to have to go through some things to get there. I don't like that. I would rather just magically appear into all that God has for me. But life doesn't work that way. We have to go through some things, because in the obscurity of the shadows of the cave is where we're prepared for the spotlight of the throne. And what you do in the cave matters, because what you do in the cave now sets you up for the throne then. See, the reason that David wasn't king yet is because David wasn't ready to be king yet. The reason you haven't gotten to where you're going yet is because you're not ready to get there yet. For me as youth pastor, I feel like God has just given me some incredible vision, incredible dreams for where UG, our student ministry, is headed. I believe that God has called us to reach thousands of middle school and high school students in this city. I'm not here for 2 years. I'm here for 10, 15, 20 years. I'll be the oldest, weirdest looking youth pastor ever. But can I be honest? We're not there yet. We're so far away. Last Sunday night, we had 107 students. And can I tell you, there's been some nights where I was like, God, why haven't you done this yet? Why are we not reaching thousands yet? Why are we not there yet? And over and over and over, God has reminded me the reason that you're not reaching thousands yet is because you're not ready to reach thousands yet. There's some things I want to do in your life first. Brad, when's the last time you've thanked me for the 107 that are there? When's the last time that you spent time on your knees, Brad, praying for the 107 that were there? Because it's not about numbers. It's not about just arriving. It's about who we're becoming. And we have to go through some caves to get to the throne. Matthew 25:21, it's one of my favorite verses, a verse that God's kind of laid on my heart this year, and I have it hanging behind my computer so I see it every single day. Matthew 25:21, you have been faithful over little, so I will set you over much. You've been faithful in the cave, so therefore I can trust you with the throne. So many times I pray for the throne and God's like, just be faithful in the cave. Just be obedient to me now. Honor me. Do what I said now. Stop obsessing. Stop being fixated on watching the throne and just get serious about now. The throne's coming. The things that you're praying for, they're on their way. The question is, will you be ready? Are you willing to go through some caves to be set up for the throne? I want to point out 3 things because every good message has 3 points. And so if you're taking notes, write these down. If you're not taking notes, today's a beautiful day to start taking notes. And you didn't know that the pearly gates, there's going to be like an express line for people with notes. And it's true. It's 2 Bradley 3:6. Write this down. Number 1, first thing we can learn from David in his caves is we need to learn to recognize God's voice. If we're going to honor God and be faithful and obedient to Him now, we've got to learn to recognize God's voice. You see, David was in the caves with his boys and they were just hanging out. And all of a sudden, Saul walks in, and I imagine the moment. Oh, David might not have even seen him first, but his boys were like, David, psst, David, that's the dude that's trying to kill you, dude. What's he doing? He's dropping trowel. That's weird. Like, dude, David, now's your moment. This is the moment that God told you about. This is the moment that God told you that He was going to give you the keys to the kingdom. This is your moment, David. And in that moment, David had the very choice every single one of you and I have every single day. Are we going to listen to others or are we going to listen to the voice of God? Because what you and I need in a cave is not the opinion of our best friend, is not the counsel of Dr. Phil or Oprah or whoever. What we need if we're going to be faithful and obedient and honor God in the cave is the voice of God and the voice of God alone. You can't survive off the voice of anybody else. And David hears his friends saying something that honestly, it makes sense. His friends even said, David, this is the day God told you about. There's going to be people in your life surrounding you, close and afar, that are going to give you their opinion and try to throw it off as God's word. David, this is the moment God told you about. Sounded good, sounded true, sounded spiritual, but it wasn't God's word. Can you recognize God's voice from the opinions of others? If you and I are going to honor God and be faithful to Him now, on the journey between point A, where we've been and where we're going, and we've got to learn to hear His voice. John 10 says that the sheep know my voice. They know my voice and follow me. Some of us are like, we've never heard God's voice. For many of us, it's because we've never opened His mouth. The reason that we've never heard God speak to us is because we've never opened His word to us. You know, sometimes I talk to people and they're like, man, I'm reading my Bible, but I just don't feel like God's speaking to me. If His mouth is open and you're reading, He's speaking. You don't need some emotional experience where you break down crying every time. Did you know this book works Monday through Friday? It's crazy. A lot of people think it only works on Saturday and Sunday. But here's the thing, even a good message, like Pastor Jeff gives us and feeds us every single week, you can't survive off of that all week. You need God's voice for yourself. You can't just take what I'm saying this morning and take it as truth and go and live for 6 more days till you come to church again. Are you hearing God's voice for yourself? Are you hearing God's voice in moments like these when Pastor Jeff gets up and delivers an incredible sermon? I feel like so many times, and another confession is the reason I don't hear God's voice many times in church is because I don't come ready to hear His voice. I come and sit through a sermon, I sit back with my arm propped up and I'm like, entertain me again, Pastor. Juggle some tricks, make me giggle. You know the people who hear God's voice during a message are the ones that are on the edge of their seats leaning with their Bible open and their notes open going, God, I need your voice. I'm hungry to hear from you. I'm hungry to hear from you. Can you recognize God's voice? So there's going to be people that say things to you that make sense. Oh, I mean, go ahead and move in together. Go ahead and sleep together. You're going to get married anyway. Sounds good. David, go ahead and kill him. God's already anointed you king. Sounds good, but it's not God's voice. Go ahead and take that. It's not a big deal. Go ahead and say that little lie about your coworker or gossip so that it can seem like you're more important and you can get the raise or the promotion. It's not a big deal, just because God wants you to succeed, and this is what God's called you to, and so it doesn't matter how you get there. Can you recognize God's voice from all others? Number two, don't compromise on what God has said. Don't compromise on what God has said. I love David's response. It says, then David crept up unnoticed and cut off a corner of Saul's robe, after David was conscience-stricken for having cut off a corner of his robe. You know, when I read this, I grew up in church, and I've read this story probably hundreds, thousands, maybe thousands, I don't know, times, and I always responded the same way. I always was like, David, what's your big deal, man? Like, the harp player in David is coming out. Like, why are you so weak, dude? Like, quit being so upset and bent out of shape on cutting a piece of his robe. He's king. He can afford a new one. Like, why? He's going to think he snagged it on some thistle or something. Like, why are you so upset, David? Why are you conscience-stricken? Why are you beating yourself up over something so small? You didn't kill him. I know for me, so many times that's the way I start to view sin and the way I start to view my heart and rationalize that, God, I'm not that bad. I didn't kill him. But the truth is I have compromised on what God has said. That it wasn't a big deal to us reading the story because we don't understand the context. You see, for Saul and his robe wasn't just a pair of jeans that he had put on that morning. His robe had adornments and things around the bottom, tassels and emblems and all of that which symbolized his authority, his anointing, his power, his influence, his position. And so when David crept up and cut it off, he wasn't just cutting off a piece of his garment. He was cutting off the symbol of his authority. And he was taking what was not his yet. He compromised. And in that moment, I believe that God was just as displeased with his cutting of the robe as if he had killed him. Because God wasn't looking at, well, thank me that you didn't kill him, David. Like, you're not that bad, David. No, God saw David's heart and goes, if your heart is willing to cut his robe, eventually your heart will be willing to kill him. Because if you compromise on what I have said, it's a slippery slope. Let me ask you, church, in what areas are you compromising right now? In what areas are you compromising? You know, some of us, a big area of compromise for many is what Pastor Jeff preached on a few weeks ago about pornography. And I know there's men in this room that listen to that message and goes, well, I don't watch porn, I don't look at porn. But you're the first in line to grab the swimsuit edition of Sports Illustrated. It's compromise. I'm not doing that. I'm good. God said, flee all sexual immorality. That if you even look at a woman and have lust in your heart, you've committed adultery. Well, I mean, me and this girl at the office, you know, we're friends, and so we get flirty and we message each other on Facebook. It's not a big deal because we don't ever go out, we don't hang out. But my wife doesn't know about it. My husband doesn't know about it. It's compromise. In what areas are you compromising? In what areas are we letting a little bit of sin into our lives? We can't compromise on what God has said. David cut off the corner of Saul's robe. He didn't kill him, but he compromised on what God had said and took what wasn't his. Let me say this too. Just because it is yours doesn't mean it's yours yet. Some of us need to get this because we think it's not a big deal because God already had anointed David the next king. He might have anointed you for it, but he hasn't put you there yet. And so many times we try to take what can only be given from God. And he took what wasn't his. Supplies so much to so many parts of our lives. Back to the, not married and sleeping together. Well, we're going to get married, so it's not a big deal. Ladies, let me tell you, some of you need to stop giving your boyfriend husband privileges. He's not your husband yet. He may be one day, but just because it will be yours doesn't mean it's yours yet. And we have got to stop taking what is not ours and compromising on what God has said. Number 3, make the decision to honor God now and trust him with then. 3 points, they don't rhyme. Sorry, half-decent message. Make the decision to honor God now and trust him within. Make the decision to honor God in the cave and trust him within. I love this closing passage, this part in verse 8 of chapter 24. It says, then David went out of the cave and called out to Saul, my Lord, the king. When Saul looked behind him, David bowed down and prostrated himself with his face to the ground. You see, the problem when I read the Bible many times is that I know the ending of the story. I know how it ends. So there's details I just blow right through because it doesn't seem significant. Because I know that David survives. I know that David becomes the king. But I want to hit pause on verse 8 for just a moment as we close our time together. That was my fake closing, so ADD people tune back in. Got 10 more minutes. Put yourself with David in this moment. Put yourself as David. The guy that is trying to kill you. You playing something making me sound spiritual? Come on. Let's bring on the Holy Ghost. Yeah, there we go. Put yourself in David's shoes. The guy that's trying to kill you just walked into the cave. And you have taken a symbol of his power. You have taken a symbol, a representation of all that he is and all that he's trying to defend. And as he's walking out of the cave, I just imagine David's boys are like, well, you didn't kill him, but bragging rights, you cut his robe, well done, man. They're probably celebrating, all the boys giving each other high fives, like, yeah, David, kingdom is his. Saul don't even know it yet. I just imagine David conscience stricken. You ever been there? Just like, man, I know I messed up. I know I blew it. I know I did not obey what God has said. Now imagine David looking at the piece of robe, the symbol of Saul's authority and anointing in his hand. Just going, I know what I got to do. He starts to walk out of the cave. I imagine David's crew is starting to realize that, David, where you going, man? David? Hey! I know you hear me, David. Where are you going, man? He's going to kill you. David just keeps on walking. Now imagine he gets to the light right on the outside of the cave, and he sees Saul still in an earshot from David. And David says to Saul, my Lord, my King. I imagine David's heart has just got to be beating out of his chest right now. As Saul recognized David's voice and turns around, and in that moment, I just imagine what's going through David's mind. Well, no turning back now. I got nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Saul, the very man that's trying to kill me, staring me back down in shock as he notices what I'm holding. I love David's response. Love David's initial response. What does he do when he's face to face with the very guy, the very man, the very king that's trying to kill him? When he understands and recognizes that he has wronged Jesus, that he has sinned against God, he's staring face to face with the guy that wants him dead. I love David's response. The Bible says he falls prostrate with his face to the ground. I just imagine what's going on in David's mind in this moment. He's probably thinking, this is it. This is it. God, I thought you said that I was going to be king. I thought you said that you had all these things for me. I thought, God, that you were going to bless me. I thought that we were going to be the next king. He's probably just waiting to feel the blade on the back of his neck as Saul runs up to him and cuts his head off and kills him. But I think David made a decision in this moment that we all need to make as followers of Jesus. David made a decision that I would rather honor God, be obedient to God, be faithful to God in the cave, and die than ever achieve or succeed or be a big deal or get God's blessings or receive all that he has for me the wrong way. I would rather be obedient to what God has said now in the cave than ever experience the throne. I'd rather honor God and die than dishonor my God and live. You see, for David, he probably thought this was the end. This is where I die. This is where Saul cuts my head off. This is the end of the story. My posse is watching. This is the end of David. But here's the thing that you and I need to know about a cave, is a cave is never permanent. A cave is a season. A cave is a season, and what David thought was the end of his life actually became the launching pad towards the throne. Because in this moment, God looked on and goes, now David's ready. Now David is a man that I can use. Now David's heart is right. Now David's heart is humbled before me. Now David wants to be obedient. Now David wants to follow me. Now David gets it, that it's not about the throne. It's about the cave, and it's about honoring God now. I just want to say this morning, don't let what God meant to be your launching pad become your shelf. Don't mishandle the cave. honor God in the cave. Be obedient now. Be faithful now. Because the throne's coming. But what you do now will determine what then looks like. Keep dreaming big dreams. Keep getting big vision. Keep believing God for incredible things. God's word is true. He has good plans for you. But honor Him now. Just trust Him with all of that. Don't become obsessed about the throne and watching all that God has for you. Just focus on being obedient now. Just focus on loving Jesus now. I love David because more than anything, more than a king, more than a shepherd, more than the Goliath slayer, he's known as a man after God's own heart. I want to be known as a man after God's own heart. I don't care about being known as the greatest preacher ever. I don't care about being known as a great dad. But I know this, that if I'm just a man after God's own heart, all that'll come into alignment. All that'll take care of itself. If you focus on the cave, the throne takes care of itself. David, a man after God's own heart. And I invite you in the weeks to come, keep reading 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel. Read about a man after God's own heart. It doesn't look like what you think it does. David goes on to do incredible things and mess up terribly. Do incredible things, blow it again. Do incredible things for God and then mess up again and miss the point. He has an affair with Bathsheba that was bathing another man's wife, gets her pregnant. So what does he do? He covers his mistake. What had happened was, kills her husband. A man after God's own heart, that doesn't seem like a man after God's own heart. It seems like a dude that's got issues. Here's what I love about the God that we serve. He's not worried about perfection, getting it right all the time. But He wants our hearts. I think the thing that stood out among David, among everybody else, the reason he's known as a man after God's own heart is because God had his heart. Yeah, he blew it. Yeah, he made mistakes. But thank God for Jesus. Thank God that we don't have to be perfect. Thank God that God saw us in His sovereignty, imperfect, flawed, messed up. Every mistake you've ever made, every mistake you're gonna make. Looked down at imperfect humanity and said, you can never earn your way to me, but I love you so much that I'm going to earn a way to you. That this sin thing, I'm going to build a bridge and His name is Jesus. And I'm going to take care of this. God doesn't want your best effort and earning and trying to get God's approval. You already are loved by God. There is nothing you can do to make Him love you more. He loves you just the way you are, and He loves you too much to let you walk out those doors and be the same person. He loves you. He's crazy about you. God isn't impressed by your resume. God isn't impressed by look at all I've done, God. Look at my church attendance. All He desires is a fully surrendered heart. And that's what David had. He says, God, I want to love you. Some of you, let that be an encouragement to you this morning. Some of you have beat yourself up all week. You've even beat yourself up because of this message, like, yeah, I blew it. And you're condemning yourself. There is no condemnation for those in Christ Jesus. Jesus just wants your heart fully, totally surrendered to Him. Have you done that? Have you given God your life? With all the imperfections, all the mess-ups, all the flaws, everything you wish you could change. Have you surrendered it to Him? Have you asked Him to forgive you? Have you asked Him to come into your life and be Lord? It's what David did, face to the ground, repenting for his wrong, humbling himself before God and his wrongdoers. God looked down and said, that's my boy. I have him. And now he's closer to the throne than he's ever been before because he's starting to be ready. Have you given God your life, your heart. Would you pray with me, church?